Buenos dias. How are we all doing? So for those that don't know me, my name is Debbie O'Brien. I'm a senior technical PM at Microsoft. I hope you don't mind, but I brought the babies along with me today. Thanks. This one up here is a React developer, and the one down there is a Solid developer. So let's see how that fares out. I'm hanging on to the bird, so if you do want to follow me on Twitter, Debs_O'Brien. And normally you would see me cycling around the island of Mallorca, where I've been living for 22 years. But they won't let me cycle on the roads these days. I don't know why. So yeah, I cycle in my garage instead. You've got to do sport. Doesn't matter. No excuses. Everyone should be doing as much sport as possible. We're here to talk about testing. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we start. Who is actually testing? And I don't mean unit tests, because unit tests are gone, right? Forget unit tests. We're talking end-to-end tests. Who here is writing end-to-end tests? The women. Great. A couple of you. Okay, not too bad. That's a little bit better. All right. Who here is writing end-to-end tests with Playwright? You're the best. Okay, a good look. There's a few of you. There's 12. Okay, that's good. At the end of this talk, you're all going to be writing end-to-end tests, and you're all going to be using Playwright. That is the aim of this talk. If not, you're not allowed to leave this room, and you'll have no coffee. Okay, what is Playwright? For those that have never heard of it, Playwright is for end-to-end testing your applications, whether it's a React application, Solid, or any application that you want. You can test on any browser. So if you have WebKit, Firefox, Chromium, you can test on all browsers, even if you don't have it on your computer. You don't need to have Firefox on your computer to test Firefox, for example. And works on any platform, Windows, Linux, and obviously Mac, and it's one API. Tests run in full isolation, which means you don't have to worry about like cleaning up between a test and getting rid of the cookies from one and it's leaking into the other. Everything is separated. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And tests are really fast because we want things to be fast. We have no time these days. We need tests to run fast. We've got some very powerful tooling, which I'll show you today. And it also works in any language. So, obviously we are all JavaScript, TypeScript. I'm hoping more TypeScript developers here. But you might be a Java or a .NET or a Python developer. Totally cool. And you can still use Playwright in the language of your choice. So why Playwright? Very simple, because it's the best. Because I said so. When you go back to your boss and you say, we need to use Playwright, and they say, why? Because Debbie said so. That's it. Let me go through all of these step by step. Auto-waiting. Really important. What does that mean? When we've seen how React, re-renders the page, right? When that element is ready on the page and re-rendered, Playwright's going to wait for that to have re-rendered to be ready on the page. You don't need to set timeouts. You don't need to do any of that work. It's all done for you. It just works. Retrying assertions, when you're asserting that something is visible on the page. If it first can't see it, because it's waiting for that to re-render, it will then retry, and it will keep going until it finds it or until it times out, of course. You can test iframes and shadow DOM. Just test it like normal. It just works. You don't have to do anything extra or add a plugin. You just test it like it's a normal element in the DOM. Test isolation. As I said, every test has its own test tube, and everything that's in that test stays in that test, does not leak into the other test. And that makes it a really nice experience when you're writing your tests. You don't have to worry about any of that cleanup. And tests run in parallel, which makes it super fast. They're not one going behind the other, behind the other, behind the other. It's really slow. It's like, let's all go at once, and off they go. And sharding, which means you can scale across multiple machines really, really easily. We'll look at that a little bit later. But basically, when you're running on CI, you can have 10 tests run on that machine. I hope not that machine. That machine's not a great machine. But you know what I mean. We have a really cool VS Code extension. Are you all using VS Code? Yes. Good. That's the right answer. If not, don't worry. There is still time to change. So we have a great VS Code extension. It makes your life easier, and I love VS Code. And we have really cool tools like CodeGen. I mean, we've seen Copilot, how it did all the work for the guys before us. They didn't have to write any code at all. And we've got something similar called CodeGen, which will generate your tests for you. So you don't have to do any work either, because we don't want you to have to work. Just turn up and get paid. And we've got a locator picker, so you can literally find the element on the page easily and not have to worry about what is that element, what is the accessible role of that element. We do all that work for you to make your life easier. We got UI mode, and I'll show you a little demo of this all later. So I'm just going a quick over it. UI mode is really cool. Watch mode, and being able to go back and forward in time through your test while developing so you can see what's going on. And then we have HTML reports, where you can see a full report of the tests, what tests passed, what failed, and go and dive into that report and understand better what you need to fix. And then we got trace viewer, because sometimes it works on my machine. And then you push it up to GitHub, and on CI it fails, and you're like, no, what do I do now? And this is how you debug on CI. You have the same possibilities as you do in development, but from CI you will download the trace of that test, and you'll be able to debug it like you were in development mode. We love GitHub Actions, so we have this built into Playwright. If you're not using GitHub Actions, you can, of course, run Playwright on any CI provider, but GitHub Actions is just the best. And you just literally push the code to GitHub and the tests run. That's as simple as that. And I'm not like a DevOps person. I was like writing the docs for this page. I'm like, but how do we do it? How does it work? Like, what do I need to write? Like, it just works. I can't put that in the docs, but it does. It just works. So push your code up. GitHub Actions will do it all for you. So let's have a look at a couple of best practices and tips. And the first one is, seriously, write end-to-end tests. And I'm not just saying that because it's like Playwright is for end-to-end testing. It's because many years ago, some very, very important people in the development world basically said, write unit tests, write lots of unit tests, and then they had a little triangle, and up here, this tiny little thing, like a small Dorito, was the end-to-end tests. And they said, end-to-end tests are slow, they take time to run, they're expensive, and it's really hard to learn. And that's all changed. So literally, like, take that triangle and turn it upside down, because the tools have got better. End-to-end testing is much easier, much faster, and it's much better because you're testing closer to the user. You want the user experience of what they're doing on the website. You want your test to reflect that, not to test the little unit in your code. There are times, of course, when unit testing is important, but don't try and get 100% coverage in unit tests and not have a single end-to-end test. That's just not good. So first thing I'm going to say is keep Playwright up to date. If you're using Playwright, we release a new version every single month. Why do we do that? Because we give amazing features, really important. We fix bugs, because even we have bugs. And we test on the latest version. Chrome releases every month. So because we give you a browser to test against, we need to make sure that browser is up to date. You're not testing against Chrome version 100 when we're on 117. So every month, you'll get the new browser, and you're able to test against that. Use locators, okay? Really, really important. Playwright locators come with auto-weighting and retriability. So we spoke about that. It's going to wait for that DOM element to be ready on the page. And we worked very closely with Kent C. Dodds. Anyone here previously or is using React testing library? Yeah, excellent. So we worked with Kent to make sure we have the same kind of structure for our accessible locators. And so we can prioritize user-facing attributes and basically make sure that we're also testing accessibility as well. So this will be very familiar to you if you're coming from React testing library, but it also just makes sense. Get by the role. What role? The role of button. What's the name of the button? Submit. Pretty straightforward, okay? Now if you're kind of thinking, yeah, I haven't studied accessibility yet and I don't know the roles. Don't worry, because we do all that work for you, and I'll show you that in a minute. But yeah, you can also, like, obviously use CSS and XPath. It's horrible. Don't do it unless you really, really have to. The DOM will change, your CSS will change, and then you got to change your tests, right? So you don't want to do that, but sometimes you might have to use CSS because you don't have access to the code and the developer did a terrible job. You know, it's fine. And you can also use test IDs if you want to, so that's totally fine as well. So everything is possible, but prioritize user-facing attributes. Use playwright's assertions. So we do have like normal assertions, but we have on top of that playwright-specific assertions. And you can see here we have await. Make sure you put the await. Then we'll expect the page. We're going to get by a test ID in this case, the ID of status, and we're expecting it to have text. That's a playwright assertion. The playwright assertions will auto-retry. So if it doesn't come to like a true in the first go, it's going to go again. It'll go again. And then if like 3 times, it's going to go, this test has failed. Or maybe you have a flaky test and it works first time, second time, or it's waiting for something to be ready. So it will retry. So it's really important to use the playwright assertions. Avoid testing third-party dependencies, right? For example, I've got a link on my website to GitHub. I don't need to test GitHub. GitHub do a great job of testing their own stuff. But I want someone to click the button to my code, right, to go to my GitHub repo. So I can intercept the root, and I can just like throw in some test data in there, and I can make sure that that link is working, or that button is working, so someone can get to where they want to go, but I don't actually have to hit the API. So that's really, really important. You don't want to be hitting third-party APIs. Use CodeGen. Seriously, sometimes people are afraid of like using tools that, you know, oh, but it's AI, I want to write it all myself. I'm a really good developer. You don't have to. Seriously, don't do all the work. Use the tools that we provide, because it really will help you. So here's a little demo of CodeGen. Let me show you how it works. So we're in VS Code, and we're going to click on Record New. You can see how it's opened up a test file for me. I'm going to put in the website I want to test. And this is like the little inspector window that I'm going to run the test on. So here in VS Code, I've got my test1 spec file. And it's already put, await page, go to this URL. Perfect. So what we do, we're going to actually search for product. Let's buy an Xbox controller, for example. So we write that in here. And I like this one in the middle. It's really cool. So let's click on that one. Obviously, because I'm having twins, I need 2 of everything. God. I'm going to add it to the bag. Here we go, up in the bag. Let's click on that. We've got 2 in there. $224. Oh my God, that's so expensive. Let's just remove that. I am not paying that. And now my cart is empty. OK, cool. So this is my test written for me. And you can see there in the test file, just by clicking around, I've got my test written. Right? No claps, no nothing. Jesus. And now I'm going to play this test, and this test is going to pass, right? And the people in the audience are going to go, wow, that's so super cool. And those ones who actually know how to write tests are going to go, but Debbie, you're not actually testing anything. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So we need to actually add the assertions ourselves. Unfortunately, CodeGen does not do that job for you, so you have to actually manually add the expects in there. So let's expect that at the bottom of the page. We're going to make sure the wireless controller is in the page, and you can see it timed out, because like, obviously when you click the remove button, there's no Xbox on the page, right? Let's move it up. We run that test. Our test passes as expected. And then when we click the remove button, we're going to expect that obviously that Xbox is not on the page, right? Because we remove them. So we'll make sure it's not visible. We can run that test again. And it will pass, obviously. And we're doing that with show browser checked from the VS Code, right? So it's going to open up a browser window, and it goes through that. You didn't see the browser window because it was on another screen. But from the VS Code, you've also got show trace viewer, so we could show that as well. We'll go through that in a second. But literally clicking record new, that's all we had to do. Click around the website, and we get most of that code for free. And you can see I've got my get by role button, get by role image, get by role cart. So I don't have to think. Sometimes it's going to pick a locator, and you're going to go, what the hell? That's because your code is really bad. Check your code, fix your code, and improve it, and then Playwright will be able to find the better locator. So use UI mode. UI mode is really cool. It was introduced, I don't know, about four or 5 months ago, and we keep making it better and better and better. So it's like, it's really, really cool. And this was because people wanted watch mode. They're like, we want to watch our tests. We don't have to want to press play every time because we're lazy developers. We want it just to rerun. So we built this in. So UI mode is very similar to the trace viewer, only it has this column here with all your tests on it. And from here, you're able to click play on the test, and you're able to click watch mode and also jump to VS Code. So let's see it in action. We're going to press play. And this is a very simple test that comes when you install Playwright. It's just very basic. But you can see how the actions, as I click on each one, I can see what's happening at each point in time. And then down below, I've got the source code at all times so I can understand what's happening. I've got a timeline at the top. But let's run the test we created with CodeGen. Now, in between those couple of seconds, I did something, but you'll see this in a second. So we're going to go through the step-by-step. I'm going to click on each action. You can see in the middle the DOM snapshot is updating, so I'm going to add my Xbox in there, and then I clicked play or enter. And you can see like what's happening. Let's see. You can see where Playwright clicked on. Clicked on that little red dot is where it clicked. That's the action. And then the action it clicked on that Xbox controller. And then I went in there and counter, like we always need a counter in our talks. So I incremented that to 2. I add it to the bag. And oh, look, it's red. Damn it, tests fail. Damn, why did it fail? OK, so this is interesting. So the page closed, and it's waiting for get by label bag. So I wanted to click the bag, and Playwright couldn't click the bag. So I don't know what's going on here. The error is telling me, but it's not very clear in a sense. So I can go to the log. There's nothing in there. Let's have a look at the source. Well, here in the call, it's saying get by label bag. So I know there's something wrong with this label. You can also see all the network stuff if you wanted to kind of dive into there. So this panel is really cool. If there was any console errors, I'd see them in there. But basically, there's an error with my label. So how do I fix these tests, right? What happens when I get to this situation? It's line 12 in my code. I'm looking at this website, and there is a bag up there on the right-hand side. So it's very obvious that there is a bag with a 1. Something is in the bag, but Playwright cannot click that bag. Any ideas why this isn't working? Because what? There's no label? Maybe there's no label, but yeah, it could be a different label. Let's have a look. So again, we can kind of go through back and forth, but how do I figure out what label it is? What do I do in this situation? What would you do? Inspect. What are you going to inspect? You're going to inspect the button. So we go back into our code, and we inspect the button and see, is that an actual label? Because we want to see, is that label actually get the label by bag? Well, we can just open up a DOM snapshot right here, because that image in our test is a DOM snapshot, so we have access to every single point of time in the test, and we can go in and we can check. And exactly as Katerina said, the area label is in fact a cart of that button. So whatever designer designed it as a bag, and the developer decided it was a cart, and we can check the accessibility tree as well. We go in here, and it's a button with cart, area label, cart. So we know now how this error is happening, right? So when you're writing your tests, you literally looked at that and you said, oh, that's a label of a bag. So when you want to fix your tests, it's very, very simple. That you can basically use the pick locator button, and you can actually just click on the bag. That would have been a quicker version than going and inspecting the DOM. And you can see here, I've got my get by label cart. So I didn't even have to inspect the DOM. I could, just to double check, but just using pick locator makes it a lot easier. And this is a little playground, so you can actually play in here. You can type, you can see how it's highlighting as it finds things. It found the cart, it didn't find the bag, so it's obvious that that bag, that doesn't work. And we can, you could type in anything in there, and literally just kind of like play around in there and see kind of what locators. You see like Playwright is finding 2 of 3. Is it a unique locator? Playwright expects everything to be exact, to be only 1. So if you find 2 of something, it will just crash and say, I don't know which one you want me to click. There's 2 here. So yeah, you can see like the button add. This would have done, right? Because Playwright is not strict by default, or it's not exact by default. So by not being exact, it will match anything with add. If it's add to bag, if it's add to something. So you can put exact true if you want only the word add. So that's why that works, as in just adding add or add to cart. So here we've got our test, and we can literally click on the eye to watch that test. Before we go to VS Code, we click on the file icon. We can open VS Code. We can paste that into our test, our correct label. And then we can basically watch the test just rerun itself, so we don't have to press play because we're in watch mode. And we can go through there, and our test passes. So that's basically the UI mode and how you would work through your tests when you're developing. As you can see, it's super simple. Like in the space of like, what? Not even 20 minutes. In the space of 15 minutes, not even 15 minutes, we've written a test, we've debugged a test, and we've shown it to the product manager of like, this is what we're testing, in case they say like, you're forgetting to add this to the user flow, etc. So this is a really, really nice experience, and anyone can kind of play along with this. So make sure you check this out and run UI mode. What do you think of UI mode? Yeah? Cool. So UI mode doesn't work from the VS Code extension. The trace view does, but you don't get the watch mode. So if you want that, you need to run in the terminal, npx playwright test --UI. So let's talk a little bit about scaling. So what happens when you have lots of tests, right? And, you know, I mean, if you have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tests, there are other ways. But I want to show you scaling when you have like, you know, especially like for my website. I don't have a lot of tests, so I have like 200 and something. My tests were taking 18 minutes, right? Every time I push my code up and I fail, gotta wait 18 minutes. That's a lot of time. It's like, oh my God. It's just my website, my personal website. So how do I make this better without spending money? This is really important, not spending money. Obviously, my code is open source, so I don't pay for things. So basically, you can shard across. So I'm running 4 shards. So I'm basically saying, instead of all my tests running on one machine, I want you to split into 4 machines. So technically, you'd say 18 minutes divided by 4, right? It's not exactly that. The test's total duration is 8 minutes. That's not divided by 4, because each shard needs to download Playwright, the browsers, each time, right? Each machine needs to actually download that. So you're adding that time to it. So it's not always the best solution. You've got to kind of decide, do I need 4 shards, 5 shards, 3 shards, and figure out which is better. We also have merge reports, so you can actually merge all the HTML reports together, and that makes it much easier on CI for debugging, etc. So here's my merge reports, and I've got like my 292 tests in one report, and I can filter them through and see what's happening. Look, I skipped one. I need to fix that. Never mind. So when it comes to Playwright, Playwright is open source and free. I love free. Free is very important. For those that haven't heard of Playwright, Playwright's about 3 and a bit years old now at this stage. So our NPM downloads are pretty much climbing through the roof. GitHub stars is like amazing. We get paid in stars. So if you do like us, give us a star. It's by Microsoft. So basically, we don't need money. That's why we're free. But if you are like, you know, a big, massive company, I'm going to like share something that is going into public preview in literally, I don't know, 10 days or something like that, or 2 weeks. It's in private preview at the moment, so you can go and test it out. But the Azure team has created a service. So if you are into kind of, you know, putting your stuff on Azure and want to scale on a big scale, you can pay money to Azure and use Playwright and kind of like split your tests and make it super, super fast. So if you've got like 2,000 tests and you're a big company and you want to pay money, you can totally do that. But that's the Azure team. We're open source. We're the open source team. So Playwright is free for anyone who wants to use it. We have a lot of ambassadors who are creating amazing content. If there's any Spanish people here, we've got Carlos, who has all the content in Spanish, so you don't have to learn English. That's great. We got Ken C. Dodds, we got Andrew Knight. We've got like loads of these who are creating content and who are pushing Playwright out and saying Playwright is the best. So we don't need to say Playwright is the best because they're doing it for us. So that's cool. So follow all their content. We have a Discord server, and we have like loads of articles and videos, and you can like, you know, reach out to the community and ask questions and hang out in there. We do happy hour in there as well. We just drink beer, which is really fun. No, we don't drink beer. We talk about Playwright. And basically, I want to tell you a little story, right? So I've got a friend. His name is Miguel. He's going to kill me for being honest, but he is. And Miguel is a really cool, really, really good developer because I mentored him. And he comes to my house sometimes, and I kind of like say, hey, what are you doing, whatever. He's building an application. And a year and a half now, I'm saying, so how are your tests? Have you written any tests? He said, no. I'm like, why not? I don't have time. In a year and a half, he hasn't had time to write tests. A year and a half. I'm like, well, what are you doing? I'm fixing bugs. I'm like, don't you get it? That if you just write tests, you're not going to be fixing. You might have bugs, but you're not going to be spending all that time fixing bugs. Yeah, I know. I just don't have time. So I'm really annoyed with Miguel because Miguel comes to my house and I'm literally like, come on. Seriously, you got to write tests. I used to work for a company where we had a bug fixing department. They didn't want to write tests. They thought they were going to lose their job. But what if we have no bugs? I'll have nothing to do. No, people, seriously. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I can stand on this stage, I can give you an amazing talk, and you can all walk out of here and you can say, Playwright is amazing, we should all write tests. And a year later, I can come on this stage and I can give the exact same talk, and the exact same people could walk out the door and go, Playwright is amazing, I really should write those tests. But I can't do the job for you. I could probably go to your office and, go like that, but it's not going to work. You are all the people here who are having the ability and who are able to go back to the company that you're working in and change the attitude, because sometimes it's the company, sometimes it's the manager, sometimes it's the team lead. I work for those companies, believe me, I'd advocate and say testing is really important. But it's all of you that have to actually go back out there and say, we need to write tests. And change the mentality of how testing is actually fun, easy, not difficult. I mean, start something small. You don't have to start with the hardest thing. Start with something small and just start pushing it into your code. Don't even tell the manager. And then when you got a few tests, just go, oh, hey, I wrote all these tests. And it took me 2 weeks, so I need a pay rise. And they're going to give you money, seriously. But no, seriously, if you don't go out and take what you've learned here and put it into action, then nobody else will, right? So it's up to you to make sure that the internet is a better place, that we're not frustrated clicking buttons that don't do what they should do. So seriously, write tests, reach out to me if you have any errors, problems, issues. Seriously, the community is there to help you. But I want to see the web being a better place, and I want to see everyone writing tests. So my question to you is, are you ready to playwright? Yes. Love it. So we have a docs page, of course. Read the docs, because the docs are very important. Follow us on Twitter. All right, we should change that to X, I know. We'll get there. YouTube channel as well, on the Discord. Join us on Discord. I'm going to leave it at that, so there's a couple of minutes left. If you do have any questions, though, let's just go out, have coffee, and come and see me and ask any questions rather than doing it here. And really enjoy the rest of the conference. I hope you learn lots. Have a great time, and write tests. Thank you very much.